Bill?
Tonight, a classic case of prisoner recidivism. A serial bank robber in New York City, already on parole, now facing charges and more prison time. His parole officer, recognizing him from surveillance of the bank robbery when it was released by New York cops, he told a judge he couldn't find a job since his release from prison last month. Eyewitness News reporter Morgan Norwood, live in the Ridgewood section of Queens with a kind of story that is all too familiar these days. Morgan.
Yeah, and Bill, I spoke with one witness who was inside the bank the day of the robbery. She says since then, there's been a guard on duty, and she says that's comforting, right? But what would be even more reassuring to her is if our legal system cracked down on repeat offenders. Tonight, the man seen here choking an 81-year-old woman as he robbed Ridgewood Savings Bank in Queens earlier this month, now behind bars. Police say 54-year-old Gerald DeRoss is a serial bank robber and was out on parole for another robbery when he held up Ridgewood Savings Glendale location on April 6. Joanne Benner works at the dental office next door. She was in the bank moments before the robbery.
That could have very well have been me that day also. You know, I feel sorry for the woman it happened to. I don't know her, but it could have been me.
In these surveillance images, you can see the suspect's hand around that woman's neck. Police say DeRoss shouted he was going to, quote, blow her brains out if the bank teller didn't give up the money. Police say he got away with about $200 in cash.
You want money? Fine, I understand it, but you don't have to hurt people?
For weeks, cops were searching for DeRoss, but according to court documents, it was his own parole officer who identified him from these surveillance images and turned him over to detectives during their routine parole meeting on Tuesday. DeRoss went before a federal judge where he admitted what he'd done, telling the judge he couldn't get a job since he was released on parole last month. According to the United States Sentencing Commission, robbery offenders had the highest recidivism rates. Experts like Richard Frankel say it's the fast money mentality.
Generally, the recidivism is that if they're successful, they get money, they're going to do it again.
But here in New York City, Frankel says the issue is much deeper and likely tied to the bail reform system that eliminated cash bail for most misdemeanors and some violent offenders, which opponents say allows violent offenders back onto the streets. In this case, though, the suspect was already released on parole after completing his 13-year sentence, so he'd already been adjudicated. Either way, advocates for the reform bail system say it's not a matter of recidivism. It's a lack of resources for offenders who were recently released.
Everyone agrees that, there were some issues with bail. However, it seems like a board on allowing those recidivists, those who use violence, to get out and do it again.
So let's talk about DeRoss. He is charged with robbery tonight, but is being held without bail. Live in Queens, I'm Morgan Norwood, Channel 7.